Chapter 2. Sheng Shaoyou felt a strange urge rising in his heart, a desire to reach out and embrace him. As the banquet drew to a close, Li Baiqia had clearly indulged in more than a few drinks. His steps were unsteady as they made their way out, and whether intentionally or unintentionally, he swayed toward Hua Yong. Hua Yong attempted to sidestep him several times, but in the end, he couldn't completely avoid him. Eventually, Li Baiqia managed to take advantage of him, loosely wrapping an arm around his waist. Sheng Shaoyou immediately reached out and pulled Hua Yong to his side, firmly wrapping an arm around him while using his elbow to push the drunken Li Baiqia away. During the banquet, many people came over to toast. As Sheng Shaoyou's companion, Hua Yong was forced to drink 2 glasses. Now, the alcohol was getting to his head, and the scorching scent of liquor mixed with the aggressive pheromones of the alpha who was standing too close made his already foggy mind even more dizzy. His fair cheeks were tinged with a drunken blush. His outfit was far too plain, making him stand out in such a setting. The contrast of his simple attire and his breathtakingly beautiful face turned Sheng Shaoyou's stunning but poorly dressed companion into the most talked about topic of the evening. Sheng Shaoyou didn't drink much. Seeing that Hua Yong seemed drunk, he had him get in the car with him and took a detour to send him home. Inside the car, the heater was on high, making Hua Yong's face appear even redder. He sat dazedly for a while, then suddenly remembered something. He took out his phone from his pocket and handed it to Sheng Shaoyou. "Amar Sheng," he said, "this is my repayment plan. Please have a look." His fingers didn't apply much force while holding the phone, but because they were too slender, the joints still protruded slightly, with a faint hint of pink at the knuckles. Sheng Shaoyou glanced at the back of Hua Yong's hand, where faint blue veins were visible, then leaned over to look at the repayment plan written in the phone's notes. Hua Yong had divided the 600,000 yuan into 30 installments, planning to repay 20,000 yuan per month. It would take him about 3 years to pay it off. Seeing Sheng Shaoyou staring silently at the repayment duration, Hua Yong assumed he thought it was too long. Nervously, he opened his lips, still tinged with the scent of alcohol, and began explaining, "I know it's a bit long, and the interest is low too. Logically, since I don't have any mortgage, the interest should be much higher than banks." His expression was somewhat tense, and both hands rested on his knees, fidgeting uneasily. "However, after I finish repaying the principal money, I'll calculate the total interest based on 4 times the bank's interest rate and continue paying the interest until it's fully paid off." Sheng Shaoyou lifted his gaze, his eyes lingering on Hua Yong's serious and earnest face. He handed the phone back and said lightly, "Actually, there's a faster way." The hands resting on Hua Yong's knees clenched tightly. Clearly, he had guessed what Sheng Shaoyou meant by a faster way, but he still pretended not to understand. He kept his tone flat as he apologized, "I'm sorry, my salary is limited. Without a promotion or raise, this is already the fastest method." The Omega across from him went silent for a moment before responding as expected. He rejected him. But unlike the firm and direct way he usually rejected other alphas, Hua Yong, perhaps mindful of Sheng Shaoyou's earlier help, spoke with a polite tone. "I'm sorry, Mr. Sheng. I might be repaying it a bit slowly, but I will pay it back as soon as I can." Looking at Hua Yong's face, flushed with a slight drunkenness but resolute in expression, Sheng Shaoyou decided not to press further. Against his own will, he simply replied, "All right." For the rest of the journey, Hua Yong closed his eyes and leaned lightly against the car window. The part of his neck exposed by the collar of his sweater was pale with a hint of pink, tempting any alpha to want to take a bite, and perhaps leave a temporary or permanent mark on him. Drowsy and utterly defenseless, Hua Yong carried an innocent yet seductive allure that stirred something unfamiliar within Sheng Shaoyou. He felt a strange urge rising in his heart, a desire to reach out and embrace him. But before Sheng Shaoyou could turn his thoughts into action and actually reach out his hand, his phone vibrated a few times. When he swiped to check, he saw several messages from familiar friends, all asking where he had managed to snag such a stunning university student as his companion tonight. He was so beautiful it made others envious. Among them, Li Baiqia and another man named Cheng had the closest relationship with Sheng Shaoyou. Both were frequent visitors to the entertainment venues of Shanghai. Half-jokingly, they told Shen and Xiaoyu that when he eventually got tired of playing around, he should remember not to let the fat water flow into outsiders' fields. Li Baiqia, despite his frivolous and licentious nature, had never directly asked Sheng Shaoyu for someone from his close companions before. This time, however, it seemed he had truly taken a liking to this orchid. Sheng Shaoyou didn't know why, but he felt extremely displeased. Perhaps it was because this orchid was too beautiful, perfectly aligned with his taste, and yet, before he could even claim it for himself, others were already coveting it, which ignited a spark of irritation within him. The car weaved through the bustling city center and arrived at the depths of the urban sprawl, stopping in front of an old residential building. Hua Yong seemed to sense the change, his eyelashes fluttering slightly as he opened his eyes. A momentary confusion flickered in his gaze before he turned to Sheng Shaoyou, his voice soft and dazed. "Mr. Sheng, we've arrived." Outside, a light rain had begun to fall. The soft patter creating a symphony against the car windows, leaving trails of transparent droplets in its wake. "Shall I walk you upstairs?" Sheng Shaoyou offered. Hua Yong hesitated for a moment before politely declining. The road and the alleys are uneven and filled with puddles. They might dirty your shoes. As he spoke, he reached for the door handle and stepped out of the car. This was an old residential area in the bustling heart of Jianghu, with an average building age of over 60 years. Exposed electrical wires crisscrossed the sky overhead, dividing it into countless sections. The narrow sidewalks were scattered with stone bollards and garbage bins. The cement-structured old buildings stood haphazardly on both sides of the road. Chaotic and unplanned, appearing like an incongruous monster in a land-scarce city center. Hua Yong stepped out, then turned around, only to see Sheng Shaoyou's darkened expression. Unsure if he should simply leave, he hesitated while standing at the side of the road and softly asked, "Then, I'll be going?" Sheng Shaoyou gave a non-committal hum. Yet Hua Yong remained rooted in place, his gaze carrying a trace of hesitation. His rain-dappled eyes seemed to ripple gently, refracting the most magnificent and dazzling glow of Jianghu's nightscape as he softly called, "Mr. Sheng, what is it?" The orchid, delicate yet resilient against the wind and rain, leaned down slightly, curling his slender white fingers to tap gently on the car window. When the glass lowered, he spoke softly, "Whenever you're free, let me know." "I'll treat you to a meal then," Sheng Shaoyu responded with another hum, and his mood instantly improved. He said to him, "Go back. It's raining, it's cold out." Hua Yong smiled at him and replied gently, "All right. Good night." Back home, even as he stood in the shower, Sheng Xiaoyu found his thoughts circling back to Hua Yong's departing figure. The light-colored turtleneck sweater Hua Yong wore looked a bit old from washing. The cuffs showed faint signs of peeling, which had clearly been carefully shaved off with a lint remover. Yet, due to the garment's age, signs of excessive wear were still inevitable. The beautiful wrist bones of the Omega peeked out from the slightly frayed cuffs, transforming the plain, worn-out sweater into something remarkably appealing. Hua Yong didn't carry an umbrella. He jogged away in the rain, his slender silhouette disappearing into the stark divide between the dilapidated neighborhood and resplendent, bustling city beyond. His retreating figure tugged at Sheng Shaoyu's heart, as his eyes followed the Omega closely. That night, Sheng Shaoyu had only one thought running through his mind: this Omega shouldn't be living in a place like that. Since starting work, Gao Tu rarely took vacations. After being assigned as Shen Wenlang's personal secretary, Gao Tu had taken even few days off in a year. His annual leave was perpetually unused. But last Thursday, Secretary Gao made an unprecedented move by requesting 3 days off, combining it with a weekend for a total of 5 days away, set to return to work the following Tuesday. It was rare for Secretary Gao to take a leave of absence, yet the HR manager didn't approve it right away. Instead, he sought instructions from his superior. As a seasoned workplace veteran, the manager knew that Gao Tu was different from other employees. Though his official rank wasn't high, he was Shen Wenlang's personal aide. So it was best to consult the boss before making a decision. When Shen Wenlang saw leave application, he approved it almost without hesitation. Only after signing did he remember to ask the reason for the request. The HR manager explained. In the reason column, he wrote us to accompany his partner during the heat period. Shen Wenlang's right eyelid twitched heavily. He lifted his gaze, his expression suddenly cold and stern, and asked, "I recall that Secretary Gao is unmarried." "Yes, he is unmarried," the HR manager replied with an awkward smile. "But under the relevant provisions of the Omega Protection Regulations, during an Omega C period, if necessary, the cohabiting partner of at least 2 years has the obligation to provide companionship." Shen Wenlang responded with a faint "oh," his tone revealing no emotion. He simply added, Understood. With Gaotu absent, the next 2 workdays were especially grueling for the rest of the secretarial team. Hua Yong, having only recently joined, was still unfamiliar with many tasks. Normally, Sheng Wenlang took good care of him, leading the secretarial team to tacitly assume that he was the boss's favorite companion, kept under his watchful eye. As a result, they didn't dare treat him as a key member, assigning him only light tasks like preparing data and organizing materials. The weekly HS group meeting was scheduled for Monday morning at 9 o'clock, and the meeting materials Sheng Wenlang used were typically prepared in advance by Gao Tu. But this week, with Secretary Gao on leave, the responsibility of compiling the materials naturally fell on Hua Yong. On Saturday morning, the Deputy Secretary General of the secretarial team was horrified to discover that the USB drive containing Monday's meeting materials had been mistakenly handed off to Gao Tu along with the data reports needed for the following Wednesday. Left with no other choice, he had to grit his teeth and called Secretary Gao. Taking care of an Omega during the heat cycle was no small feat for Beta, who couldn't release calming pheromones. On the other end of the line, Gao Tu sounded fatigued, his voice listless. "What is it?" he asked. The Deputy Secretary General explained the situation in full detail. Gao Tu hesitated for a moment, then finally sighed and said, "I'll bring it over." Due to confidentiality protocols, all HS materials were prohibited from being copied or transferred without authorization. They could only be accessed through company-issued encrypted USEAL. Gao Tu's willingness to interrupt his leave to personally deliver this USEAL truly saved the Deputy Secretary General from a pressing crisis. "Secretary Gao, thank you so much. But, he period alone at home?" he asked worriedly. "Is it really okay to let the Omega spend?" Gao Tu gave a vague then turned over and sat up from the disheveled bed. "It's fine if it's just for a short while." He reached for the thermometer gun on the bedside table, and the yellow warning light came on. Body temperature 37.8 degrees. Gao Tu let out a sigh of relief. A low-grade fever meant the difficult heat cycle was nearing its end and would soon pass. He got up and took a shower, blow-drying his hair afterward and emerging refreshed, carrying a light scent of water vapor. Opening the window to dispel the dense, heavy aroma of sage lingering in the room, he let the cold breeze clear his muddled thoughts. This was the 9th heat period Gao Tu had endured alone. Gao Tu's parents divorced when he was 11 years old. His mother, lacking stable income and taking his young sister with her, left Gao Tu in the custody of his gambling-addicted father. ABO gender differentiation usually occurred during childhood, most commonly between the ages of 6 and 7. However, Gao Tu's differentiation happened very late. He didn't experience his first heat period until the summer vacation when he was 11 years old. The day he parted with his mother coincided with the tail end of his first heat period. She had injected an inhibitor directly into his veins, handed him large supply of inhibitor pills, and warned him, "Gao Tu, Mom has to leave. You've just differentiated into an Omega, and there are so many things I can't teach you one by one. But there's one thing you must remember, never let anyone know that you're an Omega." Gao Tu stared at her, wide-eyed and bewildered, as tears of anguish reddened her eyes. He reached out to wipe them away. Her sobbing only grew more intense. "Gao Tu, your father is a beast. He'd sell his wife and children for money. You must never let him find out you're an Omega. Do you hear me? Promise me. Say you'll keep this secret. Say it. Say it." Her grip on him was so tight it hurt. Tears welled up in Gao Tu's eyes as he nodded and promised her, "I'll keep this secret." "Mom, don't cry." She immediately embraced him, soaking his t-shirt with her tears. "Gao Tu, you must remember Factory Beta. You're a Beta." Before heading out the door, Gao Tu stood in front of the cabinet, hesitating between choosing the inhibitor pills or the inhibitor injections. The previous Thursday, he had just seen Dr. Due to the long-term misuse of pheromone inhibitors, Gao Tu recently began experiencing early symptoms of pheromone disorder. His heat cycles had become unstable, and whenever he worked overtime or felt even slightly fatigued, his pheromones would uncontrollably overflow from his glands like a shattered bottle of perfume. To maintain his work performance, he had been secretly increasing his injection dosage. It wasn't until Thursday morning, when he fainted at home and missed his wake-up alarm clock, absent from work for the first time in his life, that Gao Tu realized the severity of the issue. That afternoon, he went to the hospital to register for an appointment. The familiar doctor who examined him discovered that Gaotu's heat cycle was imminent and strictly forbade him from continuing to use injectable inhibitors, insisting he immediately take leave from work. In the consultation room, Gaotu sat with a worried expression and asked the doctor, "If I don't want my pheromones to leak out, what should I do? Is there another method besides using injectable inhibitors?" The doctor glanced at him, noting the tense yet resolute expression on the face of this usually mild-mannered regular patient. Sighing helplessly, the doctor said, "Mr. Gao, I think you should consider seeing a therapist. You have an extreme rejection of your Omega identity, even a severe inferiority complex. Is this because of your partner? Does your partner dislike your Sen?" The doctor furrowed his brows. "I'm sorry if I'm overstepping, but your frequency of inhibitor use is alarmingly high. Only prolonged close proximity, such as with a partner, would necessitate it. If my assumption is correct, then your partner might be abusive." "No, it's not like that," Gaotu hastily denied, panicking. "I'm single. Then it's even more inexcusable." The doctor's tone turned sterner. "As a single, non-pregnant Omega, abusing inhibitors is extremely dangerous. Severe pheromone disorder can be life-threatening. Furthermore, injecting inhibitors during a heat cycle is already a painful process. Don't you feel the pain?" Stunned by the doctor's rebuke, Gaotu murmured blankly, "I'll take painkillers." The elderly Omega doctor, infuriated, stood up, his gray hair trembling with anger. Ignoring medical advice and misusing inhibitors on your own is bad enough. But injecting inhibitors during your heat and taking painkillers to endure it? Are you trying to kill yourself? Recalling the doctor's furious expression, Gaotu's fingers hesitated over the inhibitor pills. He thought with a trace of hope, it's just delivering a USB drive, after all. There won't be any close or prolonged contact with anyone. Taking oral inhibitors alone should be enough to suppress the Sen.